This next story from the Northcote Heavy Horse Centre in about 1995 is called "This Story Will Be Sure to Make You Cry." It had been another day in the 1990s when Julian had come to sort out old Goliath. This time he had a foot infection. It had been brought about because the old chap sludged his feet around, not always picking them up clear of the ground. You see, he really could not do that. He had terrible arthritis, largely brought on by his being worked too young and never giving his bones etc. time to grow properly. Full story to be found in his online picture storybook. You can find the link elsewhere. On this day, he was obviously in great discomfort, and the infection inside his foot was causing swelling inside and consequently even more pain. He was hobbling around, favouring this particular front foot, not really knowing where to put himself. You'll understand that this was particularly bad for Goliath, as he could not lie down and rest his foot. Julian arrived and assessed the situation. Julian was, you might say, Goliath's personal physician and surgeon too. He had been treating Goliath ever since we had brought him to Northcote at the request of Kevin Flynn, who had been the head horseman of the time at Youngco's brewery in London. Kevin had told us straight, if you cannot take him on, then it's curtains for the old chap. Nobody else will. Goliath had been about 12 years old at that time. Basically, he was a creaky old horse, but old before his time. He was a bit mean looking. In fact, he looked like a bag of bones. In his time, though, he had been a star and was still the Guinness world's tallest living horse. What to do with his foot, though, was the problem of the moment. We could not lift his foot up to look inside, as was the norm. Goliath's legs did not bend at the knee and were very creaky around the hips too. Julian looked and thought, well, the only way to relieve the pressure inside and get the badness out is to go in at the front and drill a hole, he decided. We did have one of those old silver-coloured Wolf electric drills that ran at very slow revolutions. We found that, and also a selection of drill bits and a countersink bit too. As you probably know, all the horses at Northcote are talked to every day. Well, all day really. If we want them to do something, then we just ask them to do it. You see, heavy horses are supremely intelligent. They are one of the most intelligent animals around, as any heavy horseman will tell you. In fact, before the visitors to the Northcote Heavy Horse Centre are allowed in with the horses, we have to explain to them that they must think nice thoughts. Northcote is a uniquely different experience. You do not wave at the horses over a barrier or fence. You actually go in and talk to them in their own place. You are in fact their visitors, not the other way round. Why think nice thoughts? Well, you see, when the big horse comes up to you and looks down at you and looks you in the eye, he's reading everything you are thinking. Believe me, this is true. After over 30 years working with these horses, I am telling you no fibs. If you are thinking something unpleasant, like lots of unpleasant folk do, then we could not let you in with the horses. The risk is too great for all the other nice folk who are doing their best to please the horses. Back to that drill. Now enough of that, and back to Goliath and his foot problem. We've asked Goliath to stand on a flat piece of ground, and Julian has explained to him what he has to do. Julian has to kneel down on both knees right in front of the horse, the tallest horse in the whole world, take the electric drill and slowly bore a hole through the front of Goliath's foot. All prepared, and I stood beside Goliath to provide reassurance for the horse and give him confidence in what we were doing for him. I was also giving Julian a bit of confidence too. Granted, Goliath did have a head collar on and a leading rein attached, and I was holding the rein. But should he become startled and move quickly, The fact that I was holding the rein would make no difference. He'd just take me with him. He had to have supreme confidence in what we were doing for him, for the safety of all concerned. I think this particular intervention that Julian had to do on the old horse was the one that impressed him most regarding the character and intelligence of that horse. After that particular episode, Julian felt that nothing would surprise him regarding that horse, but he was to be mistaken. Before we move on to the most amazing happening, we'll tell you what happened with that foot. Well, Julian managed to drill a small hole near the top of the hoof. An ooze of smelly yellow pus began to appear through the small hole. Julian changed the drill bit for a countersink bit and gently and very slowly enlarged the hole, working from the outside as it were. A satisfying steady ooze continued, and all were much relieved, including the horse, who visibly relaxed. All that was needed then was regular cleaning and sterilising of the hole until it was clear that there was no more infection, and then the hole could be plugged medically to allow the horn to regrow. Aftercare. In fact, it was Ruth who continued the aftercare. After all, she was the local district nurse and had already healed that awful deep ulcerous wound on his flank. Yes, by this time in her career, Ruth was a wound care specialist, especially of legs. Normally human, of course, but big hairy ones in all sizes were no great challenge for her. She had to kneel down in front of the horse, of course, a couple of times a day for a week or so to ensure all was well. Goliath seemed to just adore that attention and was never a moment's trouble. The visitors were fascinated by it, and remember, only those thinking nice thoughts gained access. You can see why. Everything had to remain calm. The biggest surprise of all. It was not long after the problem with the Goliath's foot, and Julian telephoned me to tell me that he had some special visitors staying with him. His wife was from Scandinavia, and her parents were with them here on holiday in the UK. We had an open day the following Wednesday, I think it was. This was still in the summertime and in a year when we were still welcoming fairly large numbers of visitors. The day arrived and we took our visitors into the building where we gave them the initial introductory talk, the Think Nice Thoughts session. This is in fact precautionary, as whoever gives the talks is actually weighing up the visitors individually and ensuring they have the right attitude of mind to cope with what is about to happen. Visitors who did not show that they had that correct attitude were not included in this next part of the programme. They have to wait outside the main horse building and watch from a safe distance. They were not allowed close contact with the animals. Julian and his family were towards the rear of the group of perhaps 50 people, large and small. They went into the big open building we used for this part of the programme and waited as a group in one corner. I went to collect the big horses first and introduce them to the visitors. Goliath was one of the first to go in, and I had previously explained to him that he had a special visitor today. In fact, I told him that Julian had come to see him and brought his family as well. With that, I opened the gate to allow the horses in, and Goliath was one of the first. Naturally, you can imagine that with his extra height, he could see almost anything, and he did. I watched as he actually scanned the crowd of people, saw Julian towards the rear of the large group, and straightway advanced positively, forcing his way through the group of humans until he reached Julian. Then Goliath looked him in the eye and slowly placed his head on Julian's shoulder. Consequently, there were lots of tears, and not just from the ladies. The large group were a little disturbed by the action of the Guinness tallest horse in the whole world, until I carefully explained to them that Julian, the one person that Goliath had picked out from the crowd was in fact Goliath's personal physician and surgeon. Goliath was just showing his gratitude for Julian's care and attention. There we are, that's the end of that little story. It all happened. I hope you enjoyed listening to it, and if you're listening on YouTube, perhaps you could give us a like, and if you feel like doing so also, if you were to subscribe to our channel, then YouTube will let you know just as soon as we publish anything new. Following on from that, you can look at and download Goliath's own picture storybook. There's a panel coming up now with the link. It's free to download. It's a lovely book with lots and lots of coloured pictures and his story, his life story in there. Now on the link is actually our bookcase link. It's another website, and on there are 10 different books. They're all free to download. You can choose any of the others if you wish, and the Goliath one is there as well. So thank you for listening and watching, and until next time, goodbye.